happens when a believing husband refuses access to his phone or, what's that? Or puts his phone under secret code. Okay? So what happens when a believing husband refuses access to his phone or puts his phone number under a secret code? Okay? Interesting question. I think by that we mean someone that's obviously written by a lady or a male counselor. But it sounds like written by a lady, and she can't get access to the husband's phone because there is a code on it. And I think the first answer that I would offer to that is, I have a code on my phone. I've shared it with my wife a number of times, but she keeps forgetting it. So she can't even get into it if she wants to anyway. So I have a code on my phone. It's for security reasons. If anyone were to steal the phone or it gets lost, practically all my life can be accessed through this phone. Everything. So every attempt at robbery is welcome. But it's locked down like that for that reason. And so hers. She's shared it with me a number of times and I keep forgetting. But now I've written some of it down so that if I need to, I will get into it. I suppose the question that we were asking ourselves last night is, why do you want access to his phone? So we're answering a question with a question. Why do you need access to that phone? Are you insecure about something? Are you suspecting something? Has he given you reason? Enough reason with evidence that he's hiding something. Okay? Why? So you need to be clear within yourself, first of all, why you are wanting access to that phone. And then approach your husband or your wife, because it could go the other way. I've met husbands who want access to their wives' phones and devices as well. Approach them and have a discussion. Have a discussion and let them know why you would like to know something about their phone. Okay? It's something I said even just last week. We were preaching somewhere in Lagos. Listen to this carefully. People are more likely to respond to your needs and your appeals than to your rights and your demands. Hello? People are more likely to respond to your appeal and your need than to your rights and your demand. Okay? So if I went to Margaret and said, please, that immediately shows, first of all, the posture with which I'm approaching the matter. Please, I am feeling this way. I feel like quite insecure about something. And you have to be quite transparent. You have to be vulnerable. That's the word. We have to be vulnerable. Maybe we haven't dealt with ourselves that way, but we have to develop it. Vulnerable. This is just question number one. Be vulnerable and say, please, I'm feeling a certain way. Can you please share this thing with me so that my soul and my heart can rest? It's as simple as that. Really. I think it's the same sort of question along the lines of my husband or my wife is always coming home late, telling me where they are. Similar question, right? It could have very valid reasons or it could have non-valid reasons. But the approach and the discussion is important. I hope that helps. But maybe you want to add to that.
The simple thing I say is, why do you want to have access to the phone? If you think there's a problem, then you need to deal with that. And very simply, you deal with it in the spirit. There is nothing hidden that won't be made known. So if you are suspecting something, and you've approached your partner and they've not responded, then you go and you pray that the Holy Spirit makes known those things that are hidden. And that's it. Because one of the things I say is, if you open that phone and you found something you didn't want, what will you do? Wars and fighting, right?
Okay. So in conclusion to that, approach one with a posture of appeal and need. Okay. And frankly, You know, if I felt really insecure about something, I think I would approach her and say, look, don't take this away. I'm beginning to feel like there's something going on here. That should not upset the other person. Honestly. If Mary came to me, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm really feeling like something's going on here. Can you please tell me what's going on? Or reassure me that nothing offhand is going on, please. Okay? And if that person is here and something is going on, please reveal it, because it will come out otherwise. Reveal it, and if you don't want to reveal it directly, go to pastor and reveal it together. Okay? All right. Thank you. You can all devise follow-on questions if you want, and we'll try to answer them later on. Okay, the next one is, what can parents do aside counseling and prayers when a child has a series of broken relationships? What can be done? When a child has a series of broken relationships, what can a parent do apart from counsel and prayers?
Really, counsel and prayers are the best thing, but you know your child, so you need to talk to your child to see if there are any patterns. You need to see if there are any patterns in the relationships, and if the child needs help, or if the people, needs help with the person that they're choosing, or the type of people that they're choosing. But really, when we talked about it, we thought, really, you can only counsel and pray, because a child who is seeking to get married is an adult. You can pray for them, you can counsel them, but you can't force them to take the action you're saying. I wanted to say that with our children, and maybe this is for those who are just beginning to raise up children, we started talking to our children very honestly from a young age about everything. And I remember when our daughter was older, we said to her, if you bring someone to the house, and if you find someone, you bring them to the house. But if you bring them and we say, don't marry this person for this reason and this reason and this reason, how will you respond? And we ask those questions very early. And our children understand that we have their best interest in heart. But we're also honest with ourselves. It has to be the child's best interest, not whether that person is from a tribe that you agree with or don't agree with. But it's a matter of things that are going to cause broken relationships.
Okay, I hope that was clear. Definitely, from a certain age, very young, we started talking to our children about relationships, about marriage, about all that. So for those who are still at the beginning, I just want to support my wife in that, in saying, incorporate it into the bringing up of children. Okay? Incorporate it. And here is another thing from my professional world, which does not go against the Bible. In fact, if we had time, we would highlight so many things, is that there is a period in children's lives that we call formative years, especially those formative years up to about age 9. Really very deeply and strongly up to about age 6. But then from 6 to 9, 10, they are still in the formative years, roughly, okay? And in those years, what children see and what children hear, children will do and are likely to become. Okay? What children see and what children hear, children will do and they are likely to become. So some of the things some of our adult children are going through right now, they are just trees from the seeds that were sown way early. I'm working with 50-something-year-old people, 58-year-old people who are still crying today about what happened when they were 9 years old, when they were 10 years old. Okay? At least they've been able to join the dots. The trouble is many times we're not even able to make that link. You see, what we are right now, you think you're a self-made person. A lot of who you are goes back to what parents were like. If they put me and you in a room for a couple of hours, we can discover some of that. It's just really part of the work I do, and part of the work other people do. a lot of holes. So be careful. That's why part of why the Bible says that fathers, do not frustrate your children, because it can have a long-term effect on them. Okay, that's one thing. Then finally, a few other points, but let me just say this. If all else fails, make a referral to a professional. Okay? Now, I know we're church people, we're good Christian folk, and we believe in the power of healing and all that. But listen, this very thing we're using right now, this microphone, these speakers, these technologies, we're not even certain if it was Christians that invented them or not. In the same way, a lot of the systems that we use, social systems, psychological systems that we depend on out there, don't necessarily have to be Christians, but they are gifts of God to us. So if you're struggling to really reach your adult child and say something meaningful to them, why don't you encourage them to go and speak to a professional counselor who might also be a Christian, or a professional psychotherapist who might also be a Christian, but they are trained in the ways that a mind behaves, in much the same way that a mechanic is trained in the way that a car behaves. Okay, there's nothing mad and shy about it. In fact, there was one time that Hilary, that's our daughter, will be 28 in April, we were talking through some stuff, and she was really troubled about some stuff. And we were talking through it, and I should know, because I work with people all the time, so does Margaret. And it got to one point that I thought, you know what, this is beyond me. I actually can't take you any further. And so, internally, I thought, I've run out of tools. Do you know what I mean? Anybody kind of relate to that? I've run out of tools. But fortunately, we have a very good friend, a professor of psychology, and she's also a clinical psychologist, and she's also a Christian and a pastor of a church, Auntie Dots. So I said, okay, would you like to speak to Auntie Dots? Because she might do a better job than me. And she did, and we referred her. And the same thing, we've referred our son to another uncle who is a professional counselor. That was the person I was talking to this morning, by the way, Bishop, when we were at the hospital site. He called me and we were exchanging some information because he's about to see a client and he needed some input very quickly. Professional counselor. So we exchanged input like that. And my son went to talk to him and the matter was resolved. But I couldn't resolve it for my son. I know I'm taking a little bit of time here, but I want you parents to be brave enough, to be bold enough, to be big enough to actually refer your children, especially the adult ones or the ones sort of in their mid and late teens, to somebody else to deal with. Else, they might be more objective and have more clarity than you, because you're kind of in the middle of it. Okay, you have conflict of interest already. And the other party is just trying to help. Okay, thank you. The third question, you go for it.
So this third question, I'm going to throw it back to you, but I also want to tell you a story. I want to throw this back to the young brothers in church.
Young brothers, listen up.
Why do you not pick ladies from church?
Yes, why do you not pick ladies from church, young brothers?
Come on, you need to talk to us, because there's just no way we can answer that question. We don't know why you don't pick sisters. Brothers don't pick young ladies from church. Anybody? Can I just come over? There's someone there whose eyes I've caught, whom I want to answer on behalf of everybody. Oh, wow. Thank you.
Okay, tell the truth.
But he might know something.
Thank you. Okay, I actually don't want to sound spiritual here. Why many young men don't marry young ladies in church is because most of the ladies are too spiritual for their liking. Yes. Because you will notice that sisters in church, they don't really have a good dress sense. Yes. Because most of them feel until they dress like Mother Mary, they are not holy or they are not righteous. So most guys like going out because men are attracted by what they see. So they like seeing good things, and then the ladies in church.
Why don't you just tell the truth?
Thank you so much, sisters, you're hearing. Okay, look, you know, sometimes when these things come up, we need to address them. So I beg you, Bishop and Mama, let's have some sessions on helping both our males and our female young people dress, you know, in a way that's, you know, when I said earlier, when the young people came out and they were answering their questions, they were answering them super spiritually. But we know that people get attracted to each other. And we know that people want to look at good things. And that whole thing of men are attracted by what they see. Women are attracted by what they see too. So if you don't know, well, if you don't know how to dress. Again, I always say this. My husband said the older women should teach the younger. He didn't. The scripture says how to love their husbands. Well, the older women may want to teach the younger ladies how to dress in a manner that will help. But I want to tell you a story. I won't take so long. When I think my husband has said this, we were in the same singing group when we were single, and we really got on well. He was like my best friend. The day my husband came to me and said something about relationship, that finished our friendship. I'm like, why did you come and spoil our friendship with this relationship matter? You know, there is something about you moving around with sisters and brothers that you feel you guys are all sisters and brothers together. What I had to do, in fact, he would tell you, I didn't talk to the man for a long time. It was a bit of a problem because we were in the same singing group, and now we're married. I do think there are some dynamics in church that make a brother has to behave towards a sister like a sister, and vice versa. So we have a friend who runs a church a Nigerian church in London. It's called the King's Family Center. And they are intentional about bringing their young people together. When they get to a certain age, they start counseling them, they start bringing them together, they start making opportunities for them to get together. So, Mommy, maybe opportunity is needed for our boys to see our girls and our girls to see our boys.
Yeah, so opportunity is needed. And intentionality is the key. You know, you decide that we're going to do it, and so everybody does it. Because there are fine people here, both male and female. So it's been said. Everybody wants to like what they're choosing. And by the way, very quickly, you know, in Genesis, I think it's 24, the story of Eliezer going to pick a wife for Isaac, right? When they met at the well and Rebecca was being described, one of the virtues that the Bible uses to describe her was that she was very beautiful. Of course, we all know that beauty differs from region to region. What they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder or something like that. And what's beautiful in Yola may not be beautiful in Lagos. What's beautiful in Lagos may not be beautiful in London. Even in England, there are different regions where people consider this beautiful and that not beautiful, and so on. But she was described as very beautiful, which means something about the way Eliezer saw her, he considered that my master Isaac would like this one. He already knew Isaac's type. Are you with me? Or is that too much of a leap? He already knew Isaac's type. Now, like my wife said, and this young man said, when people behave so spiritual that they have no earthly good, that way it's even very difficult for young men and young women to talk about their type of person, because that's so carnal, isn't it? It's so unspiritual. It's so carnal. But the truth is, if you're being truthful with yourself, internally you have a type. You have a type of person that will appeal to you. There's a certain kind of woman that can never tempt me to fall, to sin. I'm telling you, there is a certain type of woman, I don't even look twice. I might greet you and pass on, but it doesn't happen. There's nothing you can do. And that was from teenage. So be honest with yourselves, and people need to know what your type is in a safe way, so that when the time reaches and is maturing, everybody knows where to fall, so to speak. Okay? I hope that's been answered a little. Yeah? But workshops and meetings together, intentional hanging out, that's where you begin to discover who is your type and who is not. Okay. Number 4, do parents have influence over or a say in their children's decision to select a husband or a wife? It's only husbands this person asked. Do parents have an influence over or a say in the decision to select a husband? We have to add or wife. But the answer is yes and no. Okay? It's yes and no, depending on where you're at. It's yes and no. Isaac. How old was Isaac when they picked a wife for him? Can anybody help me, apart from the pastors? In fact, some of the pastors may not know, because I only discovered a few years ago myself while I was reading. Can anybody remember, how old was Isaac when Rebecca was found for him? 40. Thank you. He was 40 years old. Yet, his father pretty much found a wife for him. Biblical. Now, in this day and age, even try and suggest that to a 23-year-old. But I have to love him first, though. Or this and that. What? Apparently, I have to talk in a man's voice, not a woman's voice, because they're asking about husband. Okay, so I have to love her first. She's my type. And what? Listen, friends. Parents can have an influence in your choice of bride or groom. They should do, actually, for a number of reasons. One, you are marrying into a family one way or another. You are marrying into a family one way or another. I'll give you a bit of research outcome. Good research has shown us that children who have a good, I'm blinking here because I'm trying to remember the exact words of the research. Children who have a good ongoing relationship with extended family tend to do better in the long run than children who don't. Okay? If you want that paper, I can find it for you. It's all on there. Children who have an ongoing good relationship with extended family tend to do better in the long run than the children who don't. I can give you a few more outcomes about research like that. Okay, so for that reason, do allow your parents to counsel you. Another reason, they are older and they are wiser than you. Or they should be. Really. Generally they are, even by just the law of averages. If you have a dad that is, 56 years old, and a daughter that is 26 years old, there is some 30 years between them. Even if she's very smart and wise for her age, she cannot be as wise as a 50-year-old. And the father is already 56. Or the mom is already 50-something. So they are wiser than you already. Listen carefully and try to understand their concerns. And parents as well, please, it's concerns you need to be talking about. All right? Thirdly, thirdly about family now. What's that third thing? I've lost it. So I'm going to replace that with this bit. I don't know if you had that in mind, actually. We're going to use our lives as an example very quickly. Ileri did bring home a man once. Was it last year or year before now? Or 3 years? Anyway, a couple of years ago or so, or just over, she brought home a man. She had dated a while and said, this guy is yeah, let him come and see us. And he did. And of course, he sat down with us for an hour and we talked. He's an Englishman. Yes, white, we don't mind, so long as he ticks all the boxes. And for my own sake, I like objective tools. I like written tools. I don't like to just depend on talking cerebrally. I like to. So I had a note. I had notes. And we worked down the note. And at the end, there was one aspect where I thought his leadership skills were a bit weak. He's a good guy, good Christian guy, good Christian home, everything, third generation Christian, doing well, but the leadership skills were a bit weak. So I said it to him. I said, dude, you're great. I said, but I'd like you to go back to your church, enter into a leadership program, sit under a mentor, and really pump this up very quickly because
because our daughter is she's a very strong person. We know our own child, and we made the young man aware of this, that this is a strong girl, and she has a plan for her life. She knows what she wants to do. She knows what she wants to fulfill, and you don't. So if you guys get married, you may tend to follow her plans, but somewhere down the line, when it hits you, what your role is in this marriage, you may be upset with her because everything that you have been doing is her leading. But it's the situation they found themselves in. So, I'll conclude the story. So they date, and we also told them there's no point not deciding within 6 months because you've known yourself before now. And so they carried on their relationship outside of where we were. But one time my daughter called me and they had hung out together and she said, Mama, I found it really exhausting. And that caused me some concern, but I didn't say anything to her. The second time she called me and said they were out and she was exhausted. I said, you need to look at this relationship. And we talked about it. And it was like, the guy was happy for her to lead and he would just follow and do all kinds of things. And she found that exhausting. Now, if they were married, and you can see the problems that will cause. So my daughter chose to break up with the guy. And we were proud to say we had influence in that situation. We're also proud to say that it wasn't our own personal thing. I remember when I was getting married, my mom said, don't marry an Ijebu man. He's Ijebu.
He ticked all the boxes, he did. I did. So I hope that answers the question. So the answer is that's the yes part of it. You should have influence for all the things we've listed. If some of them you can't remember immediately, I'm sure this is being recorded and I'll be listening to it again myself. And the no part of it is that ultimately though, for an adult person, it is going to be their choice. Because they're going to have to answer for it at the end of the day. Ultimately, an adult person has to then make that final underscore. And parents, please, you have to be able, when you've done all you can, to say to them, you know what, if that's what you want to do, do it. You don't want your child running away to get married. Okay, my big sister did that and it caused no end of pain to everybody. It took so many years to repair everything. You really don't want to get married. Just let it go. Hand it over to God. And he will meet them in the future. In fact, he's already sorted it from the past. Okay? Right. Yes, we have to go a lot quicker now. I am aiming for, I don't know, we've done 42 minutes here. So maybe another 8 minutes and with 50 and we round it up. Does that sound about right? Yeah? Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what they say with us. Anyway, number 5. The talk about men that leave all the domestic work in the house to the women. Please talk. Women in Africa are suffering. Please talk about the men that leave all the problems, all the domestic work to the women. Please talk. Women in Africa are suffering. Can we take a vote on that? Are the women in Africa suffering? Yes. Is there any data, any evidence to that? Any data evidence that says women in Africa are suffering? Look at all of you here. Nobody looks like they're suffering. No. Every woman here looks pampered. I've seen suffering women. I know what they look like. There's no suffering woman here. Where are they? Can we have a volunteer suffering woman, please? And anybody want to volunteer as a suffering woman? No? No woman is suffering here. I think that's the answer to that question. You don't bring out the African side of me, eh? No, but more seriously though, my wife's going to try and answer it.
I don't know if I'm going to answer it because my husband and I had long discussions on this one. And he said about data. But all I can say is, I feel you. Let's talk later.
On that note, let me go to the Bible. Okay, so the question is specifically about domestic duties. That's the one I can hone in. I always like to hone in on something that is tangible, something we can work with. The business of women in Africa are suffering. I don't know about that because I don't work in that sort of data collection area, And Bill Gates has not really shown us anything yet, in that respect. So I can't speak too much about that. And that's like beginning to fight for a cause. We don't want to start a cause like that. Let's talk about the one we can handle. Right. So, I look at 1 Timothy 5, verse 14. It says, therefore, I want younger widows to get married, to bear children, to keep house. I want you to note, keep house. I want them to keep house, to give the enemy no occasion for reproach. To keep house there is a compound word in Greek that is oikodespotio. It means to be the master of the house, with emphasis on managing family affairs and domestic house matters. Even in classical Greek and social Greek, in the time when that was written, everybody that read it would have clearly understood what it meant without explanation. It is a term that was clearly understood in that time. If you read classical Greek, you will find the same terms in court materials, in social materials and edicts and stuff like that. Okay, so it wasn't a strange term. And it means with emphasis on domestic and material house matters, what we will call domestic matters these days. Titus 2:5 also uses a similar term. It says workers at home. The older ones to teach the younger ones how to love their husbands, their children, to be sensible, to be pure, to be workers at home. That is oikorios, caring for the house, working at home, the keeper of the house, keeping at home and taking care of household affairs. And then when you read Proverbs 31, woman is an incredible woman, all singing, all dancing, creative, compassionate, smart, attractive, enterprising, manager type of woman. Yet the husband is known at the city gate, and his heart trusts in her confidently and relies on and believes in her securely, so that he has no lack of honest gain or need. And so it goes on. What's my point? What point am I trying to make? This is the conclusion of it. A married woman's first concern and ministry is to her own family and to her own home. That's the biblical position. And that does include domestic affairs. Now, should she be doing it all by herself? No. You say, well, how did I get to that? No. Because like we were saying this morning, the husband is supposed to be what? A protector, a provider, and a leader in the home. And the Apostle Peter says, in 1 Peter 3, he says to honor her as the weaker vessel. Pound for pound, she is weaker. Therefore, ladies, when you're about your domestic duties in honor of the Lord and of your husband, and you're beginning to find it tiring, exhausting, onerous, too much, remember what I said earlier on. People are more likely to react better to a need and an appeal than to a right and a demand. You need to appeal to him to say, honey, Shebi, you care for me so much. Help me do this thing. In fact, why don't we talk about it so that we can share the role so that you can ease things for me? And you men too, because you're supposed to protect your wives. That protection is not just against armed robbers. It's also against fatigue, wear and tear. Those of you who are talking about men go by sight. If your wife wears out, you will not like what she looks like again. If she gets tired, old before her time, ugly and ragged, you begin to complain again. Help her. It's that simple. Help her. By helping her, you are helping yourself. No man yet hated his own body, but nourishes and cherishes it. In the same way, a man ought to love his wife. So therefore, on Fridays, for instance, my wife does not cook on Fridays. I bring home the food on Fridays. I either cook it or I bring it home. I do the bin, I do the recycling, I do all that stuff on Friday. Okay? Week on week, she doesn't have to touch the bin. She might remind me, but I do it. Okay? But I've not always. I must say this bit. I know we're like 12 seconds to 50 minutes, but I remembered this bit. There's a second side. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a second side to what I just said about the Proverbs 31 woman and the oikodespotio and the oikoros woman. If you want to look at the Greek of it, I had to go and study a bit of Greek to get that properly. Also means that the woman, the wife, becomes the master. Despotio. That's where we get the word despot from. She actually becomes the home manager and the ruler within the home. Many men would not like this, especially African men. She becomes the ruler within the home. So where the tables go, where the chairs go, where the paintings go, the color of the paints is actually the woman's role. So when we talk about domestic affairs, don't just think about washing plates, washing clothes, sweeping, doing all this stuff. It's also about managing the house in such a way that most of the time when I leave home for 2 weeks and I come back, Margaret has changed the house. I've not always found it funny, but I've had to live with it because I actually brought that revelation. I brought it, and when it struck me, I presented it to her many, many years ago. I said, I'm so sorry the way I've behaved in the past. This is what I can see now from the scriptures. It's actually your domain. So do whatever you want. And one time I came home and she had taken down a wall. A whole wall in the kitchen. I said, a wall is different to other things, madam. Please, but she's in charge of it. I don't have to like, but she's in charge of it.
Tell them how good the kitchen
How good the kitchen does look beautiful, honey. The wall was always in the way, wasn't it? It looks beautiful. We've had to quit. 1 or 2 questions are unanswered. Sorry about that, but I hope the rest have been beneficial. Okay, people? God bless you real good. Thank you for your time.